On a certain occasion in the 1600s France, a young French woman wrote a letter to the great Francis de Sales, who was a priest at that time. And she wrote a letter describing how she was so burdened by distractions in life, but even more, the effect the distractions were having in her life. And she was overly burdened and getting rather cynical and discouraged by all the stuff that she had to do, but then also the consequent emotions she had about feeling overwhelmed and discouraged. And the great St. Francis de Sales actually wrote back. And in his letter, it was only about 2.5 pages long, towards the very end, he had this great line where he said, the entire spiritual Christian life could be summed up in simply saying, it's a willingness to begin again. The willingness to begin again. Why would he say this? Well, for a multiplicity of reasons, certainly what the woman was describing, but also what I would like to call like the 4 diabolical Ds that can affect many, if not all of us, at some course in our life. And those diabolical Ds are the following: discouragement, disappointment, doubt, and despair. And they seem to build off of one another. And so where one is, it, if left unchecked, can easily start to create an opening to the next one. And they can kind of create a chaotic tailspin sort of soup in the soul. So take a brief example. Suppose, even just like a mini example, suppose you and I wanted to wake up really early as a habit, starting this upcoming Monday. And we wanted to wake up early so that we could pray and have quiet time with God before going to our daily responsibilities. Well, no sooner does Monday come along, we set our alarm, but we sleep through our alarm. And this happens several days in a row. And not only do we not get to the prayer, but it actually makes us late for our daily responsibilities. And so first, it starts with a kind of a casual disappointment, like, oh shoot, like I missed my alarm, I slept through. But then left unchecked, that disappointment can easily grow into a second diabolical D, which is discouragement. And it's a little deeper. We start saying things like, oh, I can never get my act together. This life is just cloudy. I can never get my life towards virtue. Left unchecked with discouragement, though, it can lead to a further diabolical D, which is doubt. We can start to say things like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't think God is actually wishing my good. I don't think I believe this whole thing. And you kind of see the trajectory of our thoughts, subliminally, but our thoughts that tend to orchestrate a lot of our life. And left unchecked with doubt, it can easily lead to the deepest diabolical D, which is despair. And that one is oftentimes where the enemy loves to take us. So these 4 diabolical Ds, disappointment, discouragement, doubt, and despair, can easily crush our spirit at a very subtle level. And so much of the Christian life, de Sales said to this young woman who wrote this letter, was the willingness to begin again. The Christian life is about the power of Jesus in his life, his death, and his resurrection. New life, hope can come about. And so we need to actually take concrete steps and like use a muscle of beginning again in the Christian life. And I just want to propose 2 very practical steps that have been very helpful in my own life. And so the 2 practical steps, starting with number 1, is this. Ask yourself this question: who or what am I looking at? Because if you are looking at yourself, your weaknesses, your failures, your moral track record, just your falls, whatever, if you're looking at that, it is always going to reinforce the diabolical Ds. And it'll be like, we can't get out of this little Chinese finger trap of these diabolical Ds. So we have to shift our gaze to one or something that is true and good and beautiful and hope-filled. So for me, like a practical image I like to go to, it always gives me a sense of hope, rather ironically, but it's a scene from The Way of the Cross, and it's the third fall of Jesus. And I look at that image, and I have a very particular image in mind that I grew up with. And I imagine that Jesus, again, having fallen 3 times, think about the interior state of how much there'd be a temptation to give up. You're at your last rung. and yet he got up with the power of the Father. And so I look at that image until, and this is what I invite you to do, until your emotional state shifts from sadness or discouragement or into and you can actually feel it in your soul, like a north wind shifting to a south wind. And so to first ask the question, who or what am I looking at? And to look at something good, like an image of Jesus or Mary or the gospel, until your emotional state shifts. And only then to go to the second point, which is to make a firm, verbal, conscious act of trust. A firm, verbal, I actually find it helpful, assuming nobody's around, because that's a little weird. A firm, verbal act of trust. So something like, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? I choose to begin again. And that actually reinforces a sense of hope because it's in your will. It's a willingness to begin again, but it comes through faith in who or what I am looking at. Hopefully this leads us again to live out the wisdom of the great Francis de Sales, which is just echoed in so many saints. So much of the Christian life hinges on our willingness to begin again. God bless you.